So you've heard about Basis's new dashboard utility, and you want to give it a try. But you've probably got a few questions, like, what do I have to do to get started? Will I have to write a lot of code? How do I tie it into my data? The best way to answer those questions is to do just that. Write a BBJ program that utilizes the dashboard. We can write some code to create a dashboard, and we'll build some widgets from a couple of different data file formats: a comma-separated value, or a CSV text file, and an MKeyed file. Before we load up the IDE and start writing code, let's get an overview of how to write a simple program that builds a dashboard. The flowchart gives us a good idea of what the design process entails. We'll start off by creating a dashboard object, then we'll create a dashboard category. That's basically a tab within the dashboard that contains related widgets. This part's pretty easy. We can accomplish both of those tasks in just 2 lines of code. The next part is where it starts to get interesting. We'll create widgets that are built from our data. We can choose from a number of different types of widgets, but for this example, we'll look at bar charts, grids, and pie charts. After creating our widgets, 2 more lines of code is all that we need to create the dashboard window and to display it. Now that we have a better understanding of the process, let's take a sneak peek at the end result, just so that we have a better and more complete idea of where we're heading with this exercise. Here's what our first dashboard program will look like when we run it in GUI. Dashboards are all about visualizing your data, so we should probably take a minute and look at a couple of different ways that we can query our data. For this example, we'll take advantage of BBJ's built-in stored procedures, or SPROCs, to create the data for our widgets. The built-in SPROCs allow us to execute SQL queries against both a CSV text file and a standalone data file. That means that we have the power to leverage the SQL language. We can filter, order, and even group our data without any need for an underlying database. So let's start by taking a look at our data in a numbers spreadsheet. All of the popular spreadsheet programs offer export capabilities, so we'll take advantage of that feature and export our data into a CSV file. CSV files don't have any formatting, so if we take a look at it in a text editor, it's kind of a mess compared to our original spreadsheet. We don't have to fret though, as the BBJ result set SPROCs are here to help. We'll call the getResultSet CSV stored procedure and provide 3 parameters: the location of the CSV file, a string template that describes the data in the file, and the record terminator character. So let's take this for a spin in Enterprise Manager. After executing the line of code, we can see exactly what our data looks like. Our CSV file contains a couple more columns of data for the sales representative's commission rate and amount. For our first bar chart, though, we're going to focus on the monthly sales for each sales rep. Therefore, we'll only need to grab the first 3 columns of data from the CSV file. We're also focusing on how each sales rep has performed for each month, so we'll do a select from the result of the SPROC and modify the order of the columns in our return result set. So now that we've figured out how to execute SQL queries against a simple text file that we got from our spreadsheet, we're ready to build our dashboard. Let's take a look at the finished program, as it's pretty short. The program starts off with use statements that reference the dashboard utility classes. The next couple of lines of code create a new dashboard and adds a category to it, just like we hinted at when we were looking at the flowchart. We provide a couple of strings when we create these objects. The first is a key so that we can get to that object by name later on if we wish, and the second is the title that will be displayed to the user. Now the fun begins as we create our first widget. Similar to creating a native BBJ bar chart, the dashboard widgets take several parameters so that you can get a fully functional chart up and running by calling a method and passing in those parameters. We'll start by defining the parameters for our bar chart widget. We'll define the unique name of the widget, the title, and we can even specify titles for the chart's domain and range axis. We're going to be filling up the bar chart widget with the same SQL statement that we saw earlier in Enterprise Manager. So we'll define strings that hold the connection information and an SQL query. The connection information just connects to the BBJ Sys database, so it can take advantage of the built-in SPROCs. Once that's done, we execute the add bar chart dashboard widget method on our dashboard category object, passing in all of the parameters. Our widget is now complete, so all that's left is to create the dashboard window and display it modally. Now we can run the program and admire our results. The bar chart in our dashboard looks great, and it does a much better job of telling us how our sales reps are performing for the year compared to our spreadsheet or our CSV file, doesn't it? That's just one way to write a dashboard program, though. Since you can program in a number of different ways in BBJ, we can accomplish the same thing using object-oriented programming. Most of the code is the same, but this time we've built a custom sales dashboard class that takes care of all the details, so that our main program just has to instantiate the class and tell it to display. Remember the part in the flowchart where it asked if we wanted to create more widgets? Let's do that now, but this time we'll grab our data from an mkeat file. We'll still use SQL to create our result set, but this time we'll import the entire file into a grid widget. Many of the parameters can remain the same, so this time we'll create our grid widget by adding just 4 more lines of code to our original program. We'll give it a unique name, then we'll modify the SQL statement slightly to use the getResultSet sproc instead of the one that accesses a CSV file. The method for adding a grid is simpler, so we can add our grid widget to the same dashboard category in less code. Let's run the program and see what we've got. Looks pretty good. We've talked about how powerful SQL can be, so let's capitalize on that and create a pie chart widget that compares all of the sales reps for their year-to-date sales. Again, we add just 4 lines of code and we're ready to test out our new widget. This time, we modified the SQL query to report on the sales rep and the sum of their sales for the year. And we've grouped the data by the sales rep so that we end up with a total sales figure for each person. Let's run it one more time to admire our handiwork. Excellent, just what we wanted to see. So that's all there is to getting a dashboard program up and running. By now, we should have a good idea of what it takes to get started with the dashboard. We know that it doesn't take a lot of code to build some nice looking widgets, and it's pretty easy to tie into your data, regardless of the format.